Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Yankee and Canuck podcast, a show where we discuss TV, film, and more.
And I'm your host, a Yankee.
And I'm your host, Canuck.
And today we're going to be talking about the Acolyte episode 7. Oh, we're almost done. Thank Christ we're almost done with this one.
So close.
Oh,
The end is near.
So this is basically what happens in this one. This was a big information dump. So we start on the planet of Brendok. The Jedi are scanning the planet for this thing called the Vergence, which is explained as a phenomenon where all the Force concentrates itself into one area and it apparently creates life or something. And so during which Sol finds the twins and we get into the flashbacks. There's a lot of callbacks between this episode and the third episode. They're trying to tie everything in together. So Sol finds, the lesbian witch coven hideout and finds out like, oh, they're practitioners of the Force. They got kids. We should probably do something. Meanwhile, Torben is like this little kid Padawan who's like, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go back to Coruscant.
I want to go home.
I want to go home. Grandmaster Indara is basically like, shut up, you little shit. We're here on business.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's funny because like he's there doing this for like weeks, but they don't really tell him anything except for one night when they have a campfire and they're all like, yeah, we're here because of the Vergence. We got to get a Vergence going. I'm like, oh, so weeks into this, you're barely telling him this is why you're here. Okay, whatever. So, and afterwards, Sol comes back and he's like, tells Indara and the others, hey, I think there are kids over there. We got to go check this out. And then instead of like going up to them and making themselves known and saying like, hey, we're Jedi and we notice that you have kids. This, work something out here, trying to figure out what's going on. They're like, no, instead, let's just break in and try to just get up on all their shit in the middle of their ascension and say like, hey, we want your kids.
He's just crashing the party.
Yeah, just straight up crashing the party. And the lesbian witch coven is just like, you want to test our children to see if they can become Jedi or something? All right, we're cool with that. Meanwhile, Mother NSA, even though she's like in the middle of saying like, hey, yeah, you could totally have our twins and test them and all that stuff. She does that thing with Padawan Torben, which she did in one of the last episodes. And she was basically manipulating him and just, I guess, making him an example to the other Jedi. Like, hey, don't trample on us or whatever. Like, hey, don't with us, but you can also have our kids. That's cool too. And I'm like, that didn't make any sense to me at all. So the Jedi go in and there's a lot of information that's relayed to the audience all at once, seemingly, where Aldana's just like, well, that's a great diversion, but we can't take the kids because they're too old. But Sol's like, but I think I want a kid because I want a kid. It's like he's like a kid in a toy store going like, I want that one. That's mine. I want an OSHA. Give me an OSHA. And I want a May too. I want the set. So that's what it felt like. But, So they got the kids in there. They test them. They have a super high midichlorian count. And Torben also finds out like, hey, listen, based on my readings here, they seem like exact copies. So therefore they were essentially created by the Force artificially. And Torben says like, hey, this is my meal ticket out of here. I'm going to get these twins so I can go back to Coruscant because you won't let me go back to Coruscant. So they go back and they break in and Sol's like, yeah, we got to save the twins. And they end up causing like a big ruckus. Meanwhile, in the lesbian witch coven, Osha's like, I want to be a Jedi, even though she's never heard of the Jedi before. There was no indication that she was unhappy or unwilling to part with her clan. She's like, no, I want to go. I'm like, okay. And in the middle of all this, the Jedi's like, hey, we're here for the twins. And then there's like a lot of mixed messaging happening where like, sure, you can take our twins, but at the same time, not really. You can go yourself. And so in this big convoluted mess of a plot line that's happening, Kalnaka comes in, he's possessed by one of the witches, and there's a big fight scene. So finally, Wookiee gets the fight. I complained about that in the last episode, one of the last episodes. He finally gets the fight. So I'm like, all right, that was kind of cool. So that all happens, and then in the middle of it, Sol kills, Mama Witch, and then Mama Witch is like, oh, I was like trying to get you to take Osha. Dies. and then May, because she's like angry and confused or something, she ends up burning down the temple, as we saw like back in episode 3. And then there's this whole thing where Sol's trying to save both of them, even though the kids are so like it was clear to me the kids were not in obvious peril. They could have just gotten off of the ramps that were falling apart.
Just go backwards. Just go backwards. When you came onto the ramp, just turn around.
Instead, they were just standing there like idiots, like being like, Osha, May, Osha, May. And, of course, Sol can only do so much with his Force powers. He can only save Osha because he was like, that's my favorite anyway. So they take him on the ship, and because everything was all fucked up because they interfered, Soul's like, yeah, that's your sister's fault, the one who died. Yeah, she burned down the temple. It was totally not us.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the whole episode. I'm probably forgetting some stuff, but that's the gist of it.
I mean, look, man. I mean, yikes! What another disappointing episode. I mean, 44-minute episode. You say that's good? Oh, half the episode is pretty much just the same scenes from the third episode. That's not so good. We did finally find out what transpired on Brendok. So I mean, it's like I don't know, man. I honestly think maybe they should have had this episode already. I mean, I guess it was supposed to be the big surprise and reveal that Master Soul killed Anasea and all the other information that they provided, but now it's just the
Yeah.
finale. So I don't think the spacing of it was good. I don't think it did any favors for the story by spacing it like this. And if they didn't have so much of this 44-minute episode as basically replaying events of episode 3, cut out a lot of it, get to the point, then you could have had the ending of this episode really tie in and lead into the finale a lot more. Go to the present time more and connect it better. Or this episode should have already happened instead of being a continuation of episode 3.
Again, I keep saying poorly written, poorly written, poorly written. It is poorly written. What else can I say? There's nothing much more to say other than that. I mean, because like at the end of the day, it's just like, yeah, they should have just shown this episode and just keep certain details under wraps until you replay it again, if you want to replay it again later in the season. Yeah, because by concealing so much and just by withholding all this information all the way to the end, by the time they played all this thing, it was like a little kid who crammed the night before in his exam and just put all the answers on his exam page and stuff. It's just nothing but facts thrown into the viewer's face. And it's just like, it doesn't ease you into the story. This is a really crappy way to tell a story. I mean, it just, honestly, it just feels like they came up with this idea. Like this, what we just saw was just basically the idea. And they're like, all right, and what can we extrapolate from this idea so we can sprinkle it along in the other earlier episodes and just like make a big mystery around it?
A lot of the story, a lot of the writing is not impactful enough. It doesn't hold that much of a purpose. You're not able to retain it well enough that it's meaningful in a way that's going to progress the story. And it just, I don't know, man. It's just not good.
Yeah, I know. And I saw this episode like 3 times basically just so I could try to remember what was happening. And I was so bored, man. I was so bored throughout the entire episode. And it was just like, I understand what they were trying to do. I really did. But it was just executed so poorly. Indara, Carrie-Anne Moss's character, I mean, could have been more interesting, and I think she really should have been more the focal point of this whole thing instead of Soul, in my opinion. One, because God bless his soul, he was trying, but I couldn't understand the actor half of the time. I really needed the subtitles.
I don't have any difficulty understanding them, but I will say one thing, and maybe it's controversial. Obviously, we're all fans of the actor. I think he's doing a great job. He's been a great actor in other things as well. And the character Master Soul, I think, is a good character. It's one of the better things in the show, and I think that's widely the consensus. I didn't really think the performance this episode was that good. No disrespect or anything. He's doing a good job overall. And we all know that it's mostly going to be due to the writing, the script, the dialogue. Those are the things that are going to be the issues. And
the way
he's still the actor at the end of the day.
And he's
also
the way he's directed as well.
Exactly. Good point. Exactly. So, but this was the first time this entire season I felt something was off, with regards to Soul, but with regards to the performance as well. And I was like, man, what happened here? And I don't know. I only watched the episode once. Started it a second time and gave up 5 minutes. I was like, no, I think once is enough.
Yeah.
But something about his performance this episode, I was like,
Yeah, I mean,
like I said, he's great overall, but
yeah,
was off.
It's like the Qui-Gon thing. They were trying to make him another Qui-Gon, but I wasn't buying it. And yeah, no hate on the actor. He was doing the best. All the actors tried. Awesome. They were all doing the best they could in this episode, honestly.
Even Torben?
He was actually pretty good.
He was good. Yeah.
I liked him in this episode, I think, the most. Yeah. And the reason why I feel like he was the best is because he had more depth compared to all the other characters in this episode. He was a young Padawan. He's clearly scared. He's uncomfortable. He wants to go back home. He's on this excavation for weeks. He finds his way out in terms of the twins. He gets corrupted easily because he's susceptible to the dark side, because he's scared and
he's a Padawan, he's inexperienced, and he's...
Yeah. And
already conflicted. He doesn't want to be there, and he wants to go home and boo hoo hoo. And
yeah,
he
all
wants to go home
that's
and play Nintendo or some shit. I don't
yeah.
know.
I want to go home.
I mean, yeah, there's an angstiness to that character, but it's the same qualities that you saw with Luke, that you saw with Anakin. It's those same kind of qualities that makes him kind of interesting, kind of relatable in that way. And also, I feel like that dynamic between him and Endara would have been deeper if they explored that a little bit more in this season. Yeah, and there was also like going back to the lesbian witch coven as well. I mean, that was very confused how they portrayed that whole thing. I understood what they were trying to do. Like Mama Witch was like trying to be the fair one, but then her baby mama was like, no, these are my kids and they're not going to take them away from me. I understood that dynamic. It was just not done in a very good way, in my opinion. It just was so messy to the point where it's just like that stuff happened and I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel anything bad or about them or anything like that. I was just like, okay, this is just a means to an end at this point. This is just a means to allow the series to have our twins and our assassin and our good guy person character or whatever. So I don't know, that just it was just so sloppily done. Like, and at least we saw a Kalnaka fight Jedi Wookiee. I was like, okay, at least, because I was complaining so hard that he was not fighting in the episode in which he was like offed. But in this one, you saw him fight, and I'm like, okay, that was pretty cool. I mean, I would have loved it to see him fight against Chimere, but you can't have everything, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And as far as the Kellanaka fight scene, I mean, look, you can't expect much from the series, right? I mean, we know that. But at least this was cool, right? I mean, I thought it was pretty dope. Even if it connects to a questionable story or bad writing, it's an entertaining scene at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think people would have been upset if they didn't have the Wookiee do anything, like didn't have a combat scene. Then people would be complaining, that the Wookiee didn't do anything all show for the entire series, except for make some grass stew and get killed. And tinker on the ship a little bit.
Yeah.
So I mean, at least
or finding gold coins on the beach or something with that little metal detector he had.
Yeah. In general, that opening scene where they're on the planet and you see them surveying it and checking the vegetation. Kelnaka's using a metal detector or whatever. I mean, honestly, who cares? It's honestly not that surprising because that would be what you do when you land somewhere new. You're surveying the landscape, the area. It's just something so minor. I don't know why people get upset and get bugged out about that.
Oh wait, people are actually complaining about that because like there's not.
I heard people complaining about that.
What?
Stupid metal detector and why is the Wookiee having to do that? And
I mean, I just made a joke about it, but like I can understand why he was doing it. They're on a survey mission. They're trying to survey the planet for stuff.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, seriously, people were.
What do you want to do? Like, you want to dig holes or something? Like,
I guess people are thinking they land on the planet and they're going right to business or going right to their objective, which they don't really even have one at this time. So naturally, the first thing you would do is make sure your surroundings are safe and what's the wildlife like and what's the oxygen levels.
Well, also like I mean, because like Indara is just like she even says like this was a lifeless planet and now there's life. We got to figure out why there's suddenly life on this planet.
Yeah, that's a significant thing.
I mean, yeah, because again, the episode explains this stuff, but it probably goes over people's heads because people are just so bored and they respond better to visual stimuli as opposed to just like hearing. It makes sense. I mean, like, and it's just another failure on the writer's part. There's a way to relay.
Exactly.
It's a way to you got to relay information, but in a very stimulating way where people are engaged, they're interested, because otherwise, you're gonna throw out important information, and most people are just gonna not realize it because they're just too busy being bored.
I mean, the show's not good, and the episode's probably not going to be that good either, but at least take those little things, right? Those little things that are okay, that they're good. It may be sparse, it might be sporadic, and most of the show might be shit, but whenever there's something all right, I mean, just take it because that's all you're going to be getting. I did like a line in the beginning of the episode when they're surveying the planet and they're at the campfire, and she, I think it's Indara who says it's unwise to insult a Wookiee's cooking.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I wasn't surprised to hear someone say that, and I liked that line. I got a little chuckle out of it, just because it's something that you always hear things about the Wookiees, many times, and then most famously on the Millennium Falcon when R2 and Chewbacca are playing the holo chess game, and Chewbacca starts yelling, and Han Solo's like, just let him have it. It's not wise to upset a Wookiee. C-3PO is like, sir, no one worries about upsetting a droid. And Han Solo's like, well, that's because droids don't rip people's arms out of the socket. Whereas C-3PO is like, that's right. Our 2D strategy, let the Wookiee win. That's a great line.
A lot of these new ideas could have been relayed to the audience in such a really careful manner that
Yeah, they should have been more cautious and careful about it and kind of ease people into it instead of just.
So I mean, like, yeah, but they dropped the ball in this one, obviously. But that's been the thing since day one, since the very first, like, what, 5-6 minutes of the show. As soon as Zendaro died, I was like, okay, this show's gonna probably go downhill because you can't do that and expect us to be engaged from here on out. We don't even know this character. Now we know a little bit more of her because people kept saying like, "Hey, you got just keep watching, and like season 20 it gets good, guys. I swear, you have to watch 19 seasons of this dog and it finally gets better." No, that's not how any of this shit works. I'm sorry, man. I'm busy. I got a life. I got things I got to do. I can't keep watching a dog show hoping it gets better. I can already play video games that are good. I can watch movies that are already good. I can watch other TV shows that are already good. I can listen to music that's good. I don't need to waste my time with if it's not good right away. I'm sorry.
Yep, agreed. Plus, we're getting older, man. We ain't got time for this bull.
I'm too old for this.
Yeah, there's a lot of dude, we live in an age of abundance. There's so much to watch, man. I have choices. There's choices out there. So Disney, you gotta step at the up. Just because it says Star Wars doesn't mean I'm gonna be automatically engaged. I'm sorry. I could just watch the original movies over and over and over and over again, and I'll be perfectly content until I die. I don't have to watch this new. I really don't.
I thought the first 2 episodes were okay. They just really went downhill from there.
Oh yeah, I mean, maybe I would have seen the 3rd episode out of pure curiosity, but then I would have definitely dropped out. Be like, man, that's bull.
I don't care about the coven, the witch coven, having certain abilities, like when they were turning into that mist cloud or whatever. Apparently, people were bothered by that, and I don't really have any issue with it because, look, the way I look at it is the Night Sisters did some weird when they were first introduced. And it's fine, I'm old school Star Wars, we both are. And when I first saw the Night Sisters doing stuff, I was like, yeah, this isn't Star Wars, this is ridiculous. But then you're like, oh yeah, it's not so bad. Okay, now I get it. Star Wars, it evolves. It's evolving, right? You just hope it evolves, in a better way, right? And at the end of the day, these aren't Night Sisters of Dathomir, So they may do things differently, clearly. They behave differently, clearly. Different motivations, different abilities. So, I mean, who really cares? It wasn't that big of a deal. You can try out some new things and get creative with this witch coven, see what sticks, what works, what doesn't, and come up with your own and connect it, right? Instead of don't tamper with the Jedi, the Sith, the things that are really well established, and that's upsetting people. Clearly, be creative with that new stuff that you created and have at it.
Yes.
I mean,
instead, well, I mean that's the thing. I mean, you can relay new ideas, and that's perfectly and utterly fine. But the problem is, it's so low effort. You have Leslie Headland just coming and be like,
No, listen. This is a new coven, and they can chant. Then the chant is power 1, power 2, power many.
Yeah, see, that's exactly it. I mean, people complaining about the mist ability that Anastasia had and stuff, like, who cares? That's fine. Like, she's powerful with the thread, And, I mean, some people are going to complain no matter what abilities they have. If they force push like they did in episode 3, some people are going to be upset about that. Like, they shouldn't be able to do that, something so basic that a Padawan can do. Or anybody can.
Well, the mist ability just seemed kind of like a generic horror trope when I saw it.
Agreed. But, my point is, it's not that big of a deal. It's just for a moment. But once again, like I said earlier, you can't blame the fans and the viewers because of all the nonsense that they put us through, especially with the 3rd episode. So a lot of people are looking for things to criticize and, things that stand out or whatever. And this missed ability, teleportation, whatever the hell it was, I didn't have an issue with it. Like I said,
I didn't know.
Like we always say, it's not that big of a deal. Right?
I didn't know exactly what they were trying to do with that mist teleportation thing. I was like, what are they doing? Because when Mama Witch was trying to do it, like May was kind of like disintegrating with her, and then that's when Soul killed her because thinking that he was doing something to her, I guess. And she was like, "No, actually, I wanted you to take Osha."
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame him really because she turns into the mist thing and
It's very
gets
jarring.
closer to him, and so he's like, "Oh, she's not trying to give me a hug or something. She's about to kill me."
Yeah, or harm the kid. Well, like he looked at May and he's like, "Oh, he's trying to harm the kid or something like that." He was being protective, and that was already clearly established. That's why he was there in the first place. His motivations were fine, but her doing that didn't make any sense to me. Like I understood in the context of the story why that needed to happen because she needed to die and Soul needed to kill her. May had to witness that, so therefore she grows up to be really bitter and wanted to kill all the Jedi. I understood all that. It was just relayed again in a really way that didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, even the Jedi, like in Episode 3, going in there, just showing up, breaking into the door, entering, and all that. Like, what the heck is this? Like, what?
Yeah,
No warrant, no nothing.
Yeah,
But
nothing. Yeah, no, we're intergalactic CPS. We're here to take your kids.
I mean, come on, man. But then you see when Endara in Episode 3. I hate to bring that episode back up, for obvious reasons, but I remember Endara introduces everybody and says, this is Kelnaka, this is my Padawan, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And everything's cordial, and obviously there's tension because of what's happening, but
Well, that's why I like.
and Mother Anasea, says, hello, I'm Anasea, welcome, blah blah blah. But then immediately after that, she goes into the mind of Torben and
Mhm.
messes with his mind. So like that's kind of weird, man. Like,
Yeah,
you're
I
like, "Oh,
mean-
welcome. Now I'm gonna mess with your mind, and so there's plenty of blame to go around, is what I'm saying.
You probably would have gotten hate regardless because some Star Wars fans hate new
True.
things. I understand that because at the end
True.
of the day, the original trilogy is like such a sacred thing that it is sacrilegious, in my opinion, to add on to it. Even though the concept of the Night Sisters has been around since like the Ewok movies. So let's just be completely honest. So yeah, I'm happy because there's only one more episode left. I don't want to talk about the show anymore. I don't want to think about the show anymore. I want to pretend that the show never existed after we're done with this.
Yeah, it's definitely a show I'm looking forward to be over. I definitely won't be rewatching it. That's right, guys. After next week, no more pain.
No
Don't
more.
forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Yes, please. All right, guys. Until then, see ya.